Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, hello and welcome to another bit of Volkswagen air-cooled fun. Today's exercise is concerning how to recondition inexpensively a cylinder head. It can be a Beetle head, it can be a CT head, it can be a 2-litre head. They're all basically the same principle. And that is that on a budget rebuild, we're going to change the valve guides, which are these when they're all worn out and horrible, all right, because there's too much play in them, the valve wobbles up and down, and also change the exhaust valves for new ones, because these are a very, very hard working part, okay? So we change them for a stainless steel type and so on. So as you can see, that is the head pretty much prepared. Now here is the next one we're going to work on. CU heads are identical left and right. They're not handed. Okay, now what we're going to do, first of all, make sure you've got keeper nuts on everything that's liable to get damaged. This has got a post wrong, there's somebody's been in here, and homemade bits and pieces. So anyway, this has to be cleaned down, and then we have to check all the threads, make sure there's no cracks and nothing disastrous. Then we're going to remove the valves, and then we're going to remove the valve guides, the brass valve guides. Okay, so now we have the cylinder head just put into the retaining vise. This is a little woodworking vise that I bought many years ago, and you see we put big pieces of foam, stiff hard foam, there and there, just to clamp up. Sits on a big block so that nothing moves when you don't want it to. Right, valve spring removal. There are all sorts of super duper valve spring tools. This is what I've been using since for over 40 years. Right, little stainless steel collar, big welding clamp. The foot sits on the valve, and so on. Now, we put it under a bit of tension, like that. Soft mallet, and we go bing, like that. That has now released the little collets. Now we just check that everything is all nicely lined up, and then we can just turn this around, get a little bit better light. Oh, there we are. Right, can you see? Right, that will about do it. Now, look, the two little collets, it's two collets, you see, 1 and 2. And if you've got a little magnetic tool, it makes life a lot easier. And you, there we go. And now we can simply release the tension slowly and surely. You know, take your time. And there we are. Yes, right. So, off comes the valve spring. Okay, keep that to the top. And then we can have a look at the valve. See, there's the valve. Now then. Here's the valve. Oh look, see the play? Look, not so much in that sense. Well, yes, even more in that sense. That is not acceptable. You see? Okay, this valve is going to be changed anyway, because it's the exhaust valve. These are cross flow heads. Unlike the Beetle heads, where you have the exhaust ports coming out here, the exhaust ports come across, so it flows in, across and out, across a flow head. A little bit more efficient. Okay. Well, I will get on with removing the rest of the valve springs. You will see what that involves. We've also, the spark plugs have been taken out, and you always want to look very, very carefully at the threads. What you should be able to do is that you should just be able to slacken off the spark plug and basically wind it out by hand. If it fights you, you know, you've got to look out. Then what's always a good idea is if you make one of these. Spark plug, right length, ripped out the middle, cut down with a saw so it compacts. And what you do is you can keep it. I'll just show you this. Where's me airline? Go. See? Okay, the good thing about 2 litre heads and CT heads is that they use long reach, i.e. 19mm 3/4 of an inch spark plugs, whereas Beetle heads use a 13mm 1/2 inch spark plug, and so the thread is much more likely to blow out, and also because of the 1600 Beetle head being smaller, there's always a risk of cracking here and here. Quite frankly, seeing as you can get Beetle heads so inexpensively now, if you've got a damaged Beetle head, I would say buy a new one rather than try and recondition it, because when you look at the price of the parts and you look at the price of a new one, you can see it's not really worth it. Okay, so I'm going to remove the rest of the valves now, and I'll join you later. Okay, so that's the valve springs removed. I'm leaving the valves in there just for a moment, just to show you. Look. In fact, now that there's nothing about it, you can actually hear it. See the play? The exhaust valves that suffer the most. And as you can see, the engine, the cylinder head hasn't been properly sealed, and it's been blowing by on this arm. Now I haven't cleaned this yet because I want to show you the decompression rings. Look, hidden here, can you see? Look, are the rings, which you must remove before you clean the head to any great degree. And these rings, which are very similar to the rings that go on here, look, there's the ring there, hasn't been taken off yet. They come in the gasket set. We'll talk about gasket sets in a moment. Right, so I'm going to clean this out now. I've gone over the rest of the head. It's all there, there's no cracks. 2 litres are usually fairly good for that. And then we can start looking at removing the valve guides. Well, we've cleaned the worst of the debris off, and if you recollect, I did say we're having a problem with the piston, where obviously a piston ring or something has broken in the past, or a spark plug at top. Look at what it's done on both cylinders. Okay. In fact, this is a piece of iron. It's magnetic. So we're going to have to pull that out. We're going to have to pull that out. Now, all you can do with this sort of thing is you can't machine it down easily. Can be done, but gets a bit more complex. So what we're going to do is we're going to take out the damage, and then we're going to just remove anything that is above the normal height of the deck. For example, see, look there, you see, anything that's above the height. Anything under, there's not a lot we can do now, you know. Well, hello again. Okay, anyway, meanwhile, back to the thing. As I said, you see, you can machine gently with a high-speed stone. I use a this is what I use, a die grinder, electric straight die grinder, and a white stone, a little bit of paraffin on it, and you just grind very carefully and so on. Now obviously, now this outer ring that has evidently been compromised, so before before the new barrels go on, we will use an old barrel and lap into the head, but I'll show you that later on. What we're going to do today is we're going to concentrate now on changing the valve guide. Okay, as you can see, we've got one of the inlet valves. Now, inlet's always bigger than exhaust because of the pressure. And what you do, one of the things we have to do, is we give the valve a clean up, the exhaust, the inlet valve. We're going to reuse these. There's no point in going mad when you clean them up, and all you have to do is you pop it in your spinner. Oops, little demo. I use this because it spins quite fast and but isn't terribly powerful. It's rather neat. It's rather old. Here we go. And you just use it to take off right like that. And there we are. That's sufficiently clean now to be ready for lapping in. Now this one's already been done. These two are being changed anyway, so now we're going to have a look at the valve guides. Well, here we are now, pretty much ready to start removing the valve guides. As you can see, the head is locked down. This bar is just a push-up bar. This little vise provides 2 push bars and a big piece of foam just to hold the thing in place. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to remove the valve guides. We're going to start with this one, and we're going to be putting in a new valve guide eventually. Let's take the old one out first. And as you can see, even though this is the new guide, that's the top. See? They're not quite there. So there will be some reaming involved. Anyway, that's all for later on. So, what we're going to do is we're going to use a valve guide removing system that I've had for a very long time, and it's called the VW valve guide. Easy in, or easy out, pardon, and easy in. Simple as shooting fish in a barrel. Instructions. Tap guides about 1 inch, 25 millimeters. Use large tap, 3/8, about 10 millimeters, for a 40 horsepower, i.e. a 9 millimeter valve guide, and the other ones are an 8 millimeter valve guide, which you would use the small tap, 5/16, for 36 horsepower. So what we would do is we tap down for 1 inch. Now let me just show you that if you put another valve in place, if you put another valve in place, you can get a good start up for the lineup. Make sure everything's there, and then we will then wind the cutting tool in, which will produce a thread, right, into which thread we then screw a studded bar of good quality. Gosh, this has seen some service, with a handy screwdriver tip in the end. This then winds in. In fact, it'll be that one. Then once that is wound in, you put on the big washer, the collar, the stout washer, and the lifting nut. Okay, and then it just winds out. Simple as shooting fish in a barrel. Demonstration. Okay, so we're using an M10 by 1.25 tap. Tap. 3. So that we can now take a 10 by 1.25 millimeter standard bit of all assembled, 10 by 1.25, big washer, tower, compression washer. Turn nut, out comes worn guide. Simple as shooting fish in a barrel. You can sing along if you like. Still pulling the same all the way. Here we go. Up. Valve guide gone. Okay, demonstration number 2. Other end. That will do. Be careful of the shards of the brass. They're not very good for you. Don't cut yourself with them. Okay, and then it's the same procedure. That's about it. Here we go. There we go. Ping. Trying to get a little bit easier. And there we go. Fish barrel. comes spinning straight out. Now we're going to talk about fitting the valve guides back into the cylinder head, and as you can see, won't fit for various reasons, most important of which is that whereas the old guide I can come out on 1302, the new guide I'm coming out on 13056, I will say. So that's too big. Now if you were to try to drive this in without reaming the outside, it would go in about so far and then stick solid, and you would have to either smash it in with a lump hammer and break all the collar and crack the head, or take it out and do the job properly. Now to do the job properly you will require reaming tools. This is a 1A, which is what we're going to require for here. A reaming tool sits in a holder, so it's easy to use. And what is a reaming tool? Here we are. This is a hand reaming tool, right? And as you can see, it's got blades, which are conical, angled at the end, and they fit in conical holders. And here you see the groove is deeper than the groove there. So if I wind this down that way, right, here we go, see, and tighten it all up and so on, the blades have now got smaller. And so what you do when you are reaming is you start off on a small diameter, right, and you go down, and then you take it out and you clean it all up again, and you go up a little bit in diameter, and you carry on doing this. And you have to use cutting oil. Aluminium's not the best stuff to have to cut, and then that is just the first part of the reaming operation, which will allow us to get so far as to put the valve guide into the cylinder head. That's it. Okay, demonstration time. So now we have the tool mounted. Go very, very slowly. You just use paraffin or petrol, diesel, just paraffin. Use the old trick to keep it all lined up nicely. Are you ready for this? Not sure I am. Right, here we go. Right, and that will do it, because cutting aluminium is never easy. Now we can take this up a little bit. Not a lot. And always make sure that the blades are better too little than too much. Here we go again. High in the Frenchman. Now then. See it? Very nearly fits. Look, I could just about force that. Now it wants to be a little bit more than that. It's a touchy-feely thing, I'm afraid. It wants a little bit more than that. can do a little pass on this side, but don't go down too far, because what I like to do is to leave this end very slightly tight so that it really locks the thing in. Here we are, little demonstration. Line everything up, use the valve trick. That'll do. We're not trying to go too big. Okay. Turn it right again now. So there's the valve guide in so far. My little universal smashed up socket, my end punch, see if it just goes in. That will do fine. You see it's just still sticking up. So what I like to do is just finish it off by hand. Et voila! And now, obviously, it will have to be reamed out again because... Ooh, look. I think we might just give that a tickle with the ream and no more. There we are. Okay, so that's it for now. We'll get on to the next bit soon. Well, that went in nice and easily. And you will notice that even though we had to use very little force, I only clouted it once, it's a little bit too tight. So we're going to ream again. So now with the hand reamer, line it up nicely. Right, I'm going to take that up again, just little by little. Make sure the blades are properly seated. We'll now clean that out with compressed air. And the tool. Right, so now we're going to start looking at lapping in the valves. What is lapping in and how do we do it? Lapping in is so that this seal here, which as you can see is not very good, not very regular, is married perfectly to the cutout in the valve seat. The valve seat is made of a very hard sintered material, and the idea is that we're going to use a grinding paste like this, which you put on the valve, and it then goes into the valve guide and you rock it backwards and forwards. Now